All right, welcome back. Thanks for watching. Today I'm going to talk about Crimson Flower, that a book I recently did with Matt Lesniewski and then with Bill Crabtree on colors. And you'll recognize Bill from probably Berserker and some other things. He's one of my favorite colorists. All right, so here we go. We got the cover, nice spot gloss. I love this cover. I love the pills here forming sort of the DNA double helix. I thought it was a great touch. Matt did such a great job on the covers, and I love that little detail, sort of foreshadowing what our character's going to go through. And then actually, the design of this book is good. I didn't do the design on this one, but I was really happy with how it turned out, thanks to Ethan for doing the design. And these are the original covers for the issues. Each chapter is using the covers from the issues. All right, so Crimson Flower. I wrote this. I'd been doing a bunch of research for Folklore. It's a book I did with Boom and Matt Smith doing the art. I did tons of research on just fairy tales and myths and folklore, and I had been reading a lot of like Slavic folk tales, and was really kind of excited about those. Didn't really have a place to use those or a way to sort of spin something out of that. And so this Crimson Flower sort of came from that. It's kind of an offshoot of Folklore. So if you haven't read that book, I recommend that one too. Maybe I should do a video on that. Let me know if I should. But this had an idea for a character it's set in the real world, but she's kind of an assassin, and she's been drugged and brainwashed, and we sort of follow her path. I guess spoilers in this too, but I think if it's a good story, it's okay. It can survive being spoiled, and it's still good. So I'll spoil it a little bit throughout. So if you haven't read it, maybe come back after, or just maybe stop halfway through. But yeah, the idea is, we see some of her childhood, and I love these little spot illustrations that Matt did. Let's talk about Matt for a second too. He is an artist that my editor introduced me to, and I just loved his work. He's sort of it's hard to sort of classify him. He's got like a really cartoony style, but also like hyper detailed. It kind of reminds me of a little bit of Robert Crumb, but I think just maybe better storytelling, and then like his angles and the way that he draws faces. It's just so there's nobody like him, and I just fell in love with his art right away. And then just all the little details, and he posts a lot of process videos too, so you could go watch those, and it's all little microns, and he's putting all these lines on paper, and I'm amazed at how fast he was. I think we were doing these issues monthly. He was having no problem with deadlines. Anyway, just great cartooning, really unique. He's one of a kind. He's one of those guys where as soon as I saw him, I'm like, boy, people are going to know him. He's going to be very popular, and I think he's there. Anyway, I told him early on, I was like, you draw some of the best teeth in comics, and I think he's probably tied for first with Dan Klaus, who draws really good teeth with character. Anyway, I love it, and all of this is hand lettered. All of it, even the dialogue, the captions, everything is hand lettered too. So going in, writing this for him, knowing he's hand lettering it, made me a little more careful with the scripts. Usually I'll write a script, and then I'll do a couple drafts and then turn it in. And then when it's lettered, I'll go back through and sort of do one more rewrite, light sort of polish. But with him hand lettering, I felt like it's a little bit harder to do those revisions. And so I did a little less of that. Here we go. We get a little preview early on that there's going to be something's going on with a serial killer and some assassins she's trying to track down. And she doesn't realize it yet. She has a list of people she's tracking down that are ex-assassins that she has to take care of. So it's mixed with her backstory of her childhood memories. It's sort of, we bounce back and forth between that, and then we get the sort of reveal at the end of the story. And it's great. If you look at these border treatments by Matt, like how he's using her hair here, and to sort of frame these flashbacks, and then Bill Crabtree's color is sort of shifting, making everything a little more otherworldly as we bounce back and forth. And then just the sheer amount of detail that Matt's pouring into these panels. It was so great. And this is just her going into some old apartment, having a conversation with this guy, and then a fight. But I mean, look at the veins in his arms and then his spine. It's just there's nobody doing comics like this. It's so crazy. I love it. Close up on the teeth again. And just the color. It's so great seeing Matt and working with Bill on color and the way they work together. So here we see her. She doesn't really know what's going on. She's getting these flashbacks of her childhood, and then having these visions. And this is sort of like her folktale vision of herself, how she sees herself, or how she wants to be. And that's sort of the conceit of this, is every assassin. It's all set in the real world, but the trainers who train these assassins use drugs and folktales to sort of brainwash these agents. And so she's also one of them. We find out later. It's a mild spoiler. And perhaps my favorite panel, when Matt turned this in, I was like, this is such a great way to get into a flashback and her memory. Wasn't scripted that way. He just added that. And so much of this is just Matt sort of playing off my script and adding to it. Here she goes. She's on the trail looking for the next guy. So really, she has a list of guys she's going after. Every issue is her sort of confronting some. This is a group of 3 guys that are sort of like big bad wolves out in the woods. I thought it'd be fun to do snow, and then I didn't realize Matt was going to draw every single flake of snow. But usually snow scenes are a little easier to draw because there's less, but Matt does not take a shortcut. So we have this huge fight scene with these great folktale looking characters. And again, this is sort of how they're personified, or how they view themselves, or how she's viewing them, as they have this big crazy fight in the snow. And it's great. She'll shift back and forth to the fight, to flashbacks, and then, but using that snow as the background, it's just so great. It's so surreal. And then her hair sort of coming alive. Matt has some notes in the back about his inspirations for this and how he drew her hair. That I recommend. But even this is a pretty violent book, but I feel like the violence is so stylized that there's sort of a beauty to it. It's not as horrible as it could be. Look, the frayed pants, or even that's coming alive. And so we sort of see her revert to childhood here, seeing herself as a kid. And then we get some of her flashbacks in her history. More fighting. This is just a big, long fight sequence with these 3 characters. When Matt's art started coming in, I just wanted to give him more and more to do, more crazy things to draw. And God, he just did such a great job. Still the snow falling all over. And then it quiets down. And it's such a great visual sort of break from all that snow and how busy and hectic it was. And like this calm afterwards is not just in the writing, but the art. Sort of paring itself down, cooling off. Great shots of her walking through the woods, her scarf sort of coming alive. She goes on the hunt for the final bad guy. Gets into a bit of a fight here. And yeah, I would love to know what Matt's influences are in art, because I can see a lot of little things from different people, but look at the little textures different in her hair here, swirls and lines. The way he's adding these textures and laying those in. he's one of the few modern artists I've worked with that are just truly original. Like little bits of things from here or there, but fully his own person. Like this great framing of this with this guy's jacket as we get his backstory. This is the ultimate villain telling this horrible folktale story. And using the folktales was a great way to sort of tell really horrible backstories for the characters, but doing it in a way that's like folktales used to do. You sort of candy coat the real message with sort of a fanciful folktale that is kind of dark, but sort of lessens the grittiness of it. And I think Matt's art does that here too. It sort of is a very dark story, but the way he's drawing it makes it almost seem fun. And she's getting tied up. She's in trouble. So, spoiler for the ending here. So you may want to stop here if you don't. But we get backstory of what happened to her father. And so we sort of see what we'd set up in issue 1. We sort of see that play out. The guy she's looking for is the guy that showed up when she was young. And then her parents were actually feeding her into the system that was taking kids, brainwashing them with folk tales and turning them into assassins. So her parents are kind of complicit. And so now we get her full backstory about her training, but we're seeing her training through sort of a folktale memory. And this well sequence, I was looking at this again, it kind of reminded me of some of the devices I was using in Ninjak. There was a character in there, Roku, who was sort of the super assassin. And this kind of echoes that, I think. I don't know if that was conscious or not. But I think this idea of stuck in a well, it's kind of a universal, like you can see that in all of literature, from the Bible through fairy tales. So we see her training. We see that she's really good at shooting things, arrows. And now we see her with sniper rifle. And then I love this panel too. So he's framing her face with the hair, and then it's sort of using this negative space and the panel, interacting with the panel. So good, so smart. And then we're back to her reality. She's trying to escape this. She kind of gets hurt. Big fight. I mean, this is a crazy montage here of sort of a mix of reality and the dreamlike sort of folktale. That's kind of what this whole series was about. Again, all the detail and the chain. If you've never drawn chains before, you don't realize how much of a hassle those are. Again, Matt just going all out, putting everything into it. It's amazing. Here we go. And then we have the finale. This is definitely a spoiler, so don't watch this if you don't want. But we sort of see her coming into her own. They give her folktale wine, and we see some pills in there. Part of her brainwashing. She's just been brainwashed into being like this super assassin. And then we see her completing the first of her real missions. And that's where it kind of ends. She lived happily ever after. All right, so that's Crimson Flower. These are some great variant covers. Malachi Ward. Phil Thompson did a great one. Patrick Reynolds, awesome. Marguerite did this great one. I was actually writing a book with her that's coming out from Bad Idea. And we needed covers, so I asked her if she could do one. She turned in this great cover. I love her freckles. Such a great touch. And cover by Tyler. Cool. And then it's great. The back has a sketchbook with a bunch of notes from Matt and all his inspirations. I won't spoil all that. I'll let you read that for yourself. But all of his character designs, I sort of gave him a list of like, here's the characters, and then we had to come up with what they look like in real life, but also what their sort of folktale version was going to look like through our main character's eyes. Sort of that heightened reality, or unreality, I guess. And then a lot of process stuff. Again, Matt he designed the logo. All of that was hand lettered. He had in here I did read this, he had like a fancy frame that was going to be around all the covers that they dropped out and just left white. But I don't know, I would have liked to have seen that. I think the covers were busy's, but they, I don't know. And I love this treatment on the back. I didn't do that, but I love the way it looks. All right, that's it. That's Crimson Flower. If you want me to talk about a different book or another book next time, or if you have any questions about this, just post in the comments and I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching.